Evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest free-for-all here at Up the Cherries in all departments. Please do get involved in our show. The link is in the description below. You can also find it on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. So please do remember to hit all the likes, to subscribe, to all that sort of stuff as well. But it is a pleasure, of course, to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Sam Harrison. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Whilst we're waiting for everybody to get involved, I'll just give a mention to our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. For you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. So, of course, we drew 2-2 with Fulham yesterday. I did actually go up there with Floyd, and it was quite an eventful day. Two very good goals, but also, it was quite an interesting ground to visit, actually. Um, it's one of those old school grounds that's quite steeped in history and it's really interesting to visit. Have you ever been there?
I haven't been there yet. Like, literally, I'm gutted I didn't go yesterday. I had that wedding reception to go to, otherwise I would have definitely gone. It's one on my list to do.
Yeah, it's a interesting ground, and it's funny because all the fans, both the Fulham and the Bournemouth fans, were all in together in the away end. Um,
Okay.
I'd never seen it like that before, but it was interesting. Craven Cottage is definitely should be on everybody's to-do list. Shall we welcome on our first guest?
Okay.
And we do recognise him. It is Max. How you doing, Max?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining us again, mate. And
That's all right.
yeah, of course, a draw against Fulham up at Craven Cottage.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a terrible result, really, is it?
Nah, I don't think it was. I'd have been happy to go in with a point at the end of the game, but 2-1 up at half time, cruising. But as soon as Lerma gives away a penalty, then they started to dominate the last 25 minutes. So now I thought, oh, we could go 3-2 down here. But yeah, managed to get a point, and I'm happy with that. Move on to Southampton at home on Wednesday.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure we'll talk about the Southampton game that is coming up, but there was a couple of pointers, wasn't there, in this game that we'll bring up. But let's start off with that Solanke goal. It was only a minute in, and it was. We are so delighted this guy is back. You ready for it? Three,
Oh, stop the
two,
bing bang,
one.
Parker.
Hey, welcome back, Scott.
Virus.
Welcome back. He's got fired as a bin man now, so quality. Yeah, thank you for coming on. And I tell you what, it's always a joy to have him on. Um,
He should apply for doing the bins outside the Vitality then. If he's been sacked somewhere else.
exactly. There we go. That
Yeah.
is his new job, he can still be part of our club, but just
It's
emptying the
changed the bin
bins.
liners.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the football, because I'm sure he'll comment again. Well, I hope he does anyway. But Solanke, I think it was a minute and 30 seconds, something around there.
Yeah, it was around that.
And great run that he made into the box, played it out to, of course, Phil Bill, who then crossed it back into him, and it was a lovely move. Because we were down the far end of the pitch, I thought initially it'd come off somebody, but it hadn't. Of course, it was a fantastic move.
It was. Obviously Taverner started it as well. Brilliant ball to Solanke, who then put it back to Billing, and Billing got it straight across. First time Solanke, back of the net. Great start to the game, and I thought, this was going to turn into definitely a good game for us.
Yeah, definitely. Leicester do not want Scott the Bin Man Parker. Even though Zach Rogers or Brenda Nout is of course still there. So hello Niall, hope you're well, mate. And of course AFCB Germany, good to have you with us, mate. Very happy with the draw yesterday. So what did you make of that opening goal, Max?
I don't know what, because obviously watched the game back fully. It was on my phone. It come up 1 minute in. It said we scored. I'm like, nah, can't be right. And I watched it back, and it was like a low driven long ball into Solanke, straight into Billing. Solanke cut back out, and it was a tap in. Leno, he sat Leno down. Went straight in the top ball. I was happy with that, and the Lerma goal as well. Placement.
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to the Lerma goal, because that was, we could see that quite clearly, and that was fantastic strike. Absolutely fantastic strike. Hello, Mr. Bond. My name is Bonds, John Bonds. Yes, Mr. Bond. I'll tell you what, that's quite a fortunate name, isn't it, really?
It is.
I'm sure, you could go into all clubs and go, hello, my name's Bonds. John Bond, and they think, are you James Bond's brother? I think that's quite a good line, really. But let's talk about Fulham's equaliser, because for a period of time yesterday, we went 1-0 up. We looked like we was dominating the game, and there was that funny 5 minutes where we just invited the pressure back onto us, and of course they got their equaliser.
Yeah, from the corner, obviously.
Yeah, the corner, yeah.
Yeah, it was. He's a big man, and the second I saw it land on his head, I knew that was going to go in the back of the net.
Who's it that scored it? Diop. I think he's about. I think he's like 6'5". Not. I think like one of the smallest players of ours was marking him. We should have had Billing marking him.
Yeah.
But yeah. How tall's Phil Bill? He's about 6'6", isn't he?
He's
6
foot something. He towers over me, I can assure you that.
Yeah, me as well.
The problem yesterday for both of the goals was the people who were marking those individual players. Both of those times cost us.
Especially with the penalty incident, Lerma was just wrestling him to the ground, and then when I was watching it back, the commentators were saying, "Oh, he's wrestling me down. I'll just go to ground and try and get a penalty out of it," which worked. It worked.
Yeah, we'll discuss that now, actually, because actually, let's give Scott the Big Man Parker some love. Actually, only I and Klopp have kept Haaland from scoring. He called me and asked for advice. That's very true, actually. Scott Parker kept Haaland quiet, and let's be honest, there's other managers of a better pedigree, let's say, than Scott, who didn't. So that's one to put in your CV, Scott. So yeah, I would definitely put that on the wall. Put that on the wall. Frame it. Put a picture of Erling Haaland and be like, I kept him quiet. Could work. Could work. Let's talk about that penalty incident, because personally, I think we were quite hard done by, because watching it back, Mitrovic starts grabbing Lerma. He knew, and we discussed this in quite some detail, didn't we, Sam? He
Yeah.
knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. Of course, Lerma has responded by doing the same thing, but on the spin side, I think what Jermaine Jenas said on Match of the Day yesterday was a very, very valid point. Is that he wasn't looking at the ball. He wasn't looking at the ball. He was looking at Mitrovic. Now, I've read some contrasting things on this. Of course, it isn't in the rules of the game that you should have to look at the ball at a corner. A lot of defenders look at the man, look at where the run is going. Now, if Mitrovic peeled away from Lerma and Lerma, didn't pay much attention, Lerma's still going to be criticised for that, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So I guess he's keeping an eye on him, but Mitrovic has grabbed him. Lerma's responded, but Gary O'Neill said, of course, Mitrovic fell backwards and Lerma ended up on top. Now, if that was the other way, or Mitrovic fell to the side or fell on top of Lerma, I think, well, yeah, no, fair enough. But we've seen it a couple of time and time again. Those decisions sometimes are given against the team in offence as well. And I wonder, with VAR, how much the defence have to be protected. Because personally, I think the defenders should get the benefit of the doubt.
I agree totally. Because I don't think it even went to VAR, did it? He was happy, content, and it was a penalty. That was it, wasn't it?
I think it might have been reviewed.
Okay.
He called it straight away.
Yeah.
But, I think it was reviewed, but then they wouldn't overturn the decision because it wasn't clear and obvious that it was a mistake, which, I could understand that view. But Lerma was being pulled and he responded to that. And of course, the penalty was given. Does he? I know that he had quite a hard time in the championship with regards to, and got sent off a couple of times. Of course, that Sheffield Wednesday situation. Do you think that's followed him into the Premier League?
This year, I think Mitrovic has been quality. Obviously, all the people were thinking that he wasn't going to do well again, and he's showing them all up this year and showing exactly what he can do. I think he's a proven goal scorer, and I think he will definitely get 15 plus goals easily this season.
Yeah, I do. And I think Scott Parker didn't really play to his strength. This is quite a good point from Wing here. I think genuinely that we have got 6 VAR decisions, non-decisions, unjustly went against us this season, and the media like to turn a blind eye to them. I can't disagree with that.
I agree with that totally. But the thing is in my eyes, these decisions that have been happening against us aren't going against. It should have gone for us, but it went for the other team. We've just got to move on and carry on. We need to make most of other chances that we could have to score, because we know VAR's going to stay in. We know there's always going to be decisions now which are going to go against us when they shouldn't. But then we've just got to make the other minutes on the pitch count.
Yeah, definitely. We have got a special guest just waiting backstage at the moment. I'll just quickly go through these comments before we welcome him on, because I'm sure that he'll give a neutral view to that situation as well. AFC B Germany. And usually I have a feeling, instead of praising us and how well we play, the media decides to criticise the other team much more. I think Match of the Day, to be honest, haven't really been that kind to us.
They never are.
No. No.
They never have been.
Especially Alan Shearer.
Yeah.
He hates us.
Two hellos. Hello, Jackie. How are you doing, Jackie? There she is. And Scott Dean has got the beer out. And we do have Chloe Davis with us as well. So hello, Chloe. Hope you're well. Well, let's welcome on our next guest. It is somebody who was on cherry picking. Hello, Manny. How you doing, mate?
Evening, gentlemen. All good, all good. How are you all?
Yep, all
good. Thank you
good,
very much,
all
mate.
good. I don't know how much you caught of that backstage with regards to the penalty decision against Jefferson Lerma, but my view is Mitrovic was looking for that. I think Mitrovic grabbed Lerma first. Lerma responded, but at the same time, he was looking at the man, not the ball. What's your view on all this?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, Craig, because I'm actually going to give my perspective on that. And first of all, I regret to say that I didn't really catch the match at all. All I've been able to do is just take a look at some highlights. So I didn't want to say too much about it because I didn't want to, talk about something which I didn't quite see. But obviously, you've mentioned the Solanke goal and the Lerma goal. I think it's fair to say that now you've got your two first choice attackers playing well. The 4-4-2 system is working beautifully. And with Solanke, you've got a top quality proven player. Hold on to these two and hold on to that system. I think you will be just fine. And we're going to see how well, I'm especially interested to see how well you do in the FA Cup this season because, a cup run wouldn't be beyond you lot. And another impressive performance. And as I've replied to your tweet, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Keep O'Neill until the end of the season. Now, onto the penalty. I have been watching that repeatedly for the past 5 minutes now. And the only thing that goes against Jefferson Lerma is that, as you said, Craig, he wasn't watching the ball, he was watching the man. So sometimes you've got to make sure it, like if you look at the ball, for instance, and you're trying to watch the flight of the ball, then there's no fault on your part. But that really is a small factor because, again, another thing which we need to consider is that when Mitrovic had him, he was he was tugging his shirt. What were Lerma's hands doing? His hands weren't doing anything. His hands were, if anything, trying to get out of Mitrovic's grasp. So, in my opinion, that was a very bad call. And I don't know if you boys enjoy following cricket very much. Do you, by any chance?
I'm not a very. I don't know much about cricket at all, but I know some of the rules. But what about you guys?
I watch cricket a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so there as well, they have these decisions with regard to run-outs, stumpings at the wicket-keeper's end.
Yeah.
Also, technology becomes so evolved that they're able to determine whether a batsman can be out if the ball hits his pad instead of his bat and it goes on to hit the wicket. It has to hit him perfectly in line and go straight on. And in most cases, what happens is that the benefit of doubt goes to the batsman because the batsman is the one who is attacking. Now, in this case, what I would like to see is that whenever there is a question of benefit of doubt, that's got to go to the defenders. Because it does seem clear to me that Mitrovic knew what he was doing. He was holding Lerma's shirt quite tightly, yeah? So that when he more or less decided to fall to the ground, he had Lerma with him. What disappointed me was that the people in charge of VAR never really got to take a look at Lerma's hands, what his hands were doing. Now, if Lerma's hands were holding on to Mitrovic's shirt or, trying to, grab him and give him a bear hug, if you will, then you could say that Lerma was culpable. But Lerma certainly didn't look culpable to me, and that was absolutely a poor call. And I will say that you were robbed of what should have been a well-deserved win. Because, it's not easy to go to Craven Cottage with that atmosphere playing in front of those fans. And certainly from what I saw in the highlights package, I will almost certainly get a chance to watch the match in full because I think the service that I have provides the opportunity to watch these games in full if you've missed them over the weekend. So obviously, I'll be looking to see how well Bournemouth played, aside from those incidents. But I think on the balance of things, in terms of how you were attacking Fulham and how you took the game to them, and how you took the lead as well, you would have been good value for that win, and you were definitely robbed of 2 points there. But instead of feeling disheartened by this, that you should take this as another example of how brilliant a job O'Neill has done and how wonderful the progress has been. And certainly, as both of you have mentioned, coming up to Southampton, you'll be going to their ground and playing, or will they? You are going to St Mary's, aren't you?
No,
No.
Oh yeah, they're coming over to the Vitality. That's perfect. But that is going to be another example of how you can take that recovery even further, and make sure that you take it out on your dreaded South Coast rivals, because that's what good teams do. Liverpool lost to us. They were probably thought that they were good value for a draw, but they beat Manchester City today. I want you boys to show that spirit. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we do have 2 more special guests on the show, so it is a pleasure to welcome back onto the show James. How you doing, James? All right, mate?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Hi, James.
Yeah.
And we do have Stephen. How you doing, Stephen?
Not bad, yourself.
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. So, I think we've covered off quite a bit about that penalty decision that went in favour of Fulham. Let's discuss the goal, because we haven't really covered that off, the Lerma goal, because that was a strike into the bottom right-hand corner. Personally, I don't think any goalkeeper would have saved.
Nice. Solanke running in, obviously passed it to Lerma. He beautifully placed it bottom corner. Couldn't have put it any better. Straight in. You knew that was going in. Beautiful finish.
Yeah. What did you think of that, James?
Yeah.
Brilliant goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Max, what do you think?
Cool, calm, collective. Really didn't smash it. Just placement.
Manny.
I don't want to be repetitive. Another flowing attack, top quality strike. The Fulham defence were rooted to the spot. Another top quality goal. Another reason why you should have won.
Liquid football.
Definitely. Well, we did have a penalty shout of our own as well. And, well, there was 2 penalty shouts. There was the point where Tim Ream had touched the ball with his hand. Now, I personally think that would have been very, very harsh to have given that against Ream. What do you guys make of that?
It would have been
I
very
thought it
soft
was
for me. Yeah, it would have been soft, but you've seen them given. And, Bournemouth's luck, it wasn't given for us. But if it was a different team like Man United, probably would have been given as a penalty.
Yeah.
But there was another penalty shout that we had.
Yeah.
And that was Ryan Fredericks that broke through, and then he was tugged back by Ream. And personally, I think that was a penalty.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that was very unlucky for us not to get that penalty, yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that one.
We should have had a penalty then, because Fredericks come running from behind, and then we just grabbed hold of him and just went down. Should have been a penalty, but
The problem with that one was, I think Fredericks, when he goes down dramatic, which doesn't
like
happen.
against Leicester, of course. Johnny Evans, lightest contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
He
Yeah.
needs to, calm down a bit on how he falls down, because that one was definitely over to Johnny Evans. That one looked a penalty to me.
Definitely. Just before I get Manny's thoughts on that, just a couple of comments. Scott the Bin Man Parker, I tell you what, he's a character. You could say I'm wicked at it. I don't understand that, Scott. I don't understand that. Oh, you could say I'm wicked at it. Yeah, I don't get it. Don't get it. Also, evening Al Guard, how you doing, mate? Hope you're keeping well. And yeah, um, good to have your thoughts earlier on as well. And by all means, if you do want to jump on, you're more than welcome, mate. But can understand if you don't want to. AFCB Germany love an early goal against Fulham, either after the second half or when the game begins. Yep, we always do actually. Just thinking back to last season, another really early goal, wasn't it?
It was. I think that was in seconds, that one.
Yeah, that was.
Couple
Yeah.
of passes, straight over to Solanke, bang, top corner.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, fell a bit easy, which probably resulted in not in receiving a penalty with regards to Fredericks. Yeah, I think that's our view of it, isn't it, Sam? Really, that it was a little bit theatrical, and
Yeah.
that's why we didn't get it. Scott the Bin Man Parker said it's a pun. Come on now, sorry, Scott. I can't help it. I'm a bit thick on that front. So Manny, of course you're neutral. You do talk a good game. With regards to that Fredericks penalty shout, what did you make of that?
Again, I had the opportunity to sort of watch that earlier on today as part of a highlights package. I mean, I remember, watching it on the telly because I think they were showing some of the highlights of yesterday's games. And from what I saw from that, Craig, certainly it was a case of Ream grabbing Fredericks sort of by his elbow, if you will.
Yeah,
But I think what saved Ream in a way was he caught he did tug Frederick's elbow. I mean, I don't know if he necessarily tugged him, but he did have his hand on his elbow. But he released it afterwards because he started to realize, you know what? If I keep it on for too much longer, I'm not going. I don't really want to run too much of a risk of conceding a penalty like that. And it's one thing to sort of go in to someone to try to make a hard tackle, but when you try to commit a blatant foul like holding someone back, you're putting yourself at an even bigger risk of potentially getting sent off for being the last man. That actually happened with Manchester City in the Champions League against Copenhagen when Sergio Gomez tugged the Copenhagen striker back and was sent off for being the last man. Thankfully, at least for him, he didn't concede a penalty. And as you've said, the reaction was a little bit, theatrical. I think Ream probably was smart enough not to really go too far into it. I often say sometimes that, if it's always better to be slaughtered as a sheep than a lamb. If you go in hard for a tackle and then just come out, but then end up conceding the foul anyway, you might as well instead go in. But a tackle is one thing, pulling someone back is another. I think Ream probably, took his hand off at the right time, and Fredericks probably did make a bit of a meal out of that. But I've seen some of those given. I think Ream was probably a little bit sensible, but Fredericks, if he had just fallen down and maybe I don't know. Maybe if he didn't indulge in those theatrics, maybe he would have won that penalty, or maybe he could possibly have been cautioned for diving. It's hard to say. It's hard to say in that moment. But I would say again that that was another marginal call. Some of those have been given before. Some of those haven't been given before. And I suppose on the balance of things, maybe VAR got that one right if they were checking that.
yeah, definitely. AFCB Germany has just put a question to myself in the comment section. I will get to that in a second. But of course, Stephen, you've been waiting patiently there. What do you make of a 2-2 draw for Bournemouth against Fulham? And of course, you're an Arsenal fan as well. What do you make of how it's changed since we played you?
Well, when we played you, um, I thought Bournemouth were all but gone. It didn't look like you had any um, sort of shape, or like, for me it didn't feel like it looked like a team that could have the potential of staying up. Especially after when Scott Parker was sacked, quite rightly, I think he spoke out of turn. and if you look at the change, I think he's spitting feathers now, in his words. Um, it just shows how shit of a manager he is. If but it's quite clear because he says the team was good enough to stay up, yet all of a sudden you're now what 13th, 14th, well in the fight for it. So um, yeah, shows his credentials. But yeah, when we played you, I think um, it you've definitely grown since then. I think you've become harder to beat. Um, and I think if we played you now, I don't think it would have been the same story. I think it would have been a lot tighter, a lot closer game, despite us being in such good form at the minute. Um, but yeah, I think 2-2 against Fulham, I do think you probably should have chances to win the game. But at least you're not conceding 3 points against teams that, let's be honest, Fulham are going to be one of your rivals to try and stay up. So the least you can do is not make sure they get an extra an extra 2 points out of this game by winning all three. So yeah, like I said, I do think you're unlucky in this game, but but like I said, at least you're not conceding 3 points against your rivals, and you looked so much better as a team than when we played you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know what, that 3-0 defeat against Arsenal, we conceded twice in the first 10 minutes. And then it's that Saliba goal. I don't think anybody would have been able to do anything about that, really.
I
You
think
know,
you
it
have
was,
one of your people, one of your colleagues do our come on our preview, and you
yes, yeah,
didn't look
Matt
very
did.
you didn't look very optimistic at all. You were sort of dreading the occasion. Now I think you could probably go in there thinking, if we get a bit of luck our way, we can actually like cause Arsenal some damage. So it'd be interesting to see how it is when we play you next year on the away in the home fixture.
Yeah, definitely. Um, just quickly, I will come back to your first question, AFCB Germany, in just a second. But didn't see the West Ham penalty, but apparently it was a similar incident and it was given, and that's why he said it was a penalty. Silver said that so that there will be some bias. Did you see that at all, Manny?
You're
I
Mm,
mute,
think
mate.
you're on mute, Manny.
Mute Manny.
Yeah, I didn't really see that, so I can't really comment on that. I'm going to have to make sure I, check that right now. In fact, I want to thank the person who asked that question. But like I said, a lot of these penalties have been given. Several of them haven't been given. It talks about borderline issues. I just hope that going from here on in, that when it comes to issues like this, the benefit of doubt is given to the defense because it has to be something, in my opinion, really, really blatant and really dangerous in some ways to even warrant a penalty. I mean, we can agree that the Mitrovic penalty against Lerma was, a pretty poor call. I'm going to check that West Ham versus Fulham penalty right now and give you my thoughts on that. But I think we can just agree. Let's give the benefit of doubt to the defense from here on in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's what my view is that the defence should always get viewed as, they should get the decision rather than the attackers, especially in those ones which are 50-50, which I felt yesterday's was. Let's go back to this question. It is a little bit unrelated to this game. On an unrelated note, any indication of how long it would take for the takeover to be finalised? I can answer with what I know. So the takeover should have happened before the Leicester game. So the Friday before the Leicester game. That was when I was told from a good source that it was going to happen. Um, it, I believe, was done that day. I can't say 100%. I can't, guarantee that. but I believe that it was done. Um, of course, Bill Foley was there for the Leicester game, and there has been some intentions set out, but um, the way this will work. So the fit and proper persons test. And this is something I've explored since as well. So there is a fit and proper persons test before everything is signed and agreed. So that bit was done. So there was two rumours going around that it was all going to be signed and he was going to be in charge that day. It happens that both rumours are right, because the other rumour was that he signed and then he had to go through the fit and proper persons test. The first part's been done. It's all been signed. Now I believe there's the second part of the fit and proper persons test, which will then conclude, and then he'll be able to make any changes to the club as and when he sees fit. Now I believe that's going to be before the World Cup, which is a couple of weeks away. But again, there's no guarantees. And I did come under a little bit of criticism for saying that Friday. It's fair enough. But I believe it was done that day. It just was announced on the actual Saturday. We've got some comments, and we have got a Fulham fan here as well with the comments. Lads, I'm sorry, but we were better than you and should have won that game. It was a clear penalty. And AFCB Germany's already gone back. How should you have won that game? So let's go back to that first comment. We were better than you and we should have won that game. I was
Should have
there.
took your chances.
Yeah. I
Should have won the
personally,
game. Should have took your chances then.
I think the first half we were all over Fulham, apart from 5 minutes when they got the equaliser. Really, we had that header from Adam Smith, and was it Phil Billing that was the first header, saved by Leno, wasn't it? And then there was a follow-up header by Adam Smith. Have I got that the right way around? It is Billing, the first one. I think you're on mute, Sam.
Yeah, Adam Smith followed up. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Adam Smith followed up. It was Phil Billing, though, that made the initial header, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it again. So really, we could have been 3-1 up at the break.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that would have buried Fulham. The second half, from about the 70th minute, it was a little bit one-way traffic. We was having to defend, but we defended very, very well. And I can't see, and we'll go around the room for this, I can't see. I think we were the better side overall. Yeah, Fulham had 20 minutes at the end and 5 minutes in the first half. But we were the better side. What do you guys think?
So yeah, first half, like you said, I definitely think we were the better side. We could have made it 3-1 and finished the game, but we didn't. The second half, we allowed a lot of pressure near the end, but as you said, we did defend well and keep in the game. The thing for me yesterday is, I think maybe, I know sometimes when the game's flowing and you're holding on 2-2, you don't want to make any changes, but for me, I would have maybe made a change a bit sooner, 88th minute, bringing on Kiefer Moore's a bit late, maybe try and bring him on 75th. But other than that, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say Fulham were the better side, definitely.
Yeah, no problem. I know that you need to head off, Sam, so we will be seeing you at Cherry Picking. Well, I'll see you on Wednesday as well.
We will do.
Yeah, and football trainers, of course, as well. Where, this time, hopefully show some more silky skills and put one put past the goalkeeper.
That's it. Southampton Wednesday nights, guarantee we're going to win at least 3-0. Come on.
Yeah, definitely, mate. All right, I'll see you then. See you later, mate.
See you later.
Take care, Sam.
Right, Max. Your view. Were we the better side than Fulham?
Personally, yeah, we played quite well actually, but like you were saying, the last 20 minutes, there's a massive momentum shift. I noticed because where I was watching it on a stream as well. Um, they did dominate us the last 20 minutes, but going back to what the Fulham fan was saying in the chat, saying they should have won. I saw Mitrovic had two chances at the end. He shot wide. I don't know if it was a deflection or not, but missed the goal by quite some bit. But we were the better side overall. But normally, the thing is with us, we're normally a second half team. We come out and fight like up against Leicester, but clearly the first half we were better. But looking back at the highlights in the second half for us, I saw Solanke got a narrow angle shot saved and got a corner out of it, and yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
definitely. Well, Sam's gone, but we've got another Harrison in the building. We've got Matt. How you doing, mate?
Hello, sorry about that. I've had some technical issues tonight.
That's all right. Give the router a kick and it work.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
So, what we'll do is we'll go through, very, very quickly the main points. But of course, the penalty that was given against us. What was your view, mate?
Well, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't have. If I'm defending, I wouldn't put my arms around the player. You're kind of playing into Mitrovic's type of game there. So yeah, I mean, you've seen them given plenty of time. So I'm not so disheartened by it, to be honest. Whether it should have been a penalty or not, from Lerma's point of view, from in terms of defending, when you're in the box facing a set piece, you don't wrap your arms around the opposition player like that. And Mitrovic has taken full advantage of it by falling and pulling Lerma down with him, which has made it look like a penalty. So
Yeah.
I to be honest, I know there's a lot of uproar about it, but there's a lot of comments.
Oh, I think your internet has gone. Just a second, Matt. Right, we'll come back to that in a second. So, hello, Matt. Are you back in the room?
Hello?
Hello, mate. You just disappeared for a moment.
I've got full internet here, so I'm all right.
Have you? Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. Guess who's back as well? Have you seen the comments?
Yeah, I've read through him. Yeah, I see our friend the man's back. Yeah.
The bin man is back.
Nah.
Just very quickly, because before we ask Matt his views on the Fredericks incident, agree we had more than enough chances to add on to that lead, and the first Fulham goal was a goalie mistake in my opinion. Neto should have saved it. To be fair, that's a fair point. That's something that we haven't really discussed.
I'm going to jump in here and say I disagree. You take a look at the highlights, for example. You've spoken about Diop, right? 6'5" and all that, and how he was able to, just glance it past. I think could Neto perhaps been positioned a little bit better, maybe to to sort of prevent it from going in, maybe. But when the ball is going in that fast, even if he had had a stronger right hand, it still would have been in the balance as to whether or not he would have, saved it. And of course, obviously, as a goalkeeper, you want to have some stronger hands, and maybe Neto could have done better. But I'm pretty certain that the way it was directed at him, it would have gone in, even if Neto would have had a stronger hand there. And I certainly wouldn't want to, criticize him because he has been key to your revival this season after the 9-0 drubbing. There are some things, of course, that he can improve on a little bit, and I think he's shown in some ways why he's more of a backup instead of an actual starter. But let's not be too harsh on him. I mean, he has kept Bournemouth in, and he's also made sure that defensively you've been quite sound with the way he's been able to help the back four get organised. Could he have done better? Marginally so, but I'm not going to be too harsh on him there.
Mm-hmm. An interesting statistic here as well from AFCB Germany. We are the only unbeaten team in the league since the 9-0 loss against Liverpool.
That is correct.
Liverpool.
Last
is
6 games unbeaten, which is, credit to Gary O'Neill, really.
Sorry.
In terms of picking the team up after that 9-0 drubbing and taking the team forward. So credit to Gary O'Neill and the staff and all the players really on that one.
I gotta admit that first of all that's a great stat to have as Bournemouth. To be fair, it does remind me a bit of what Arsenal, like Top Gooners were like last season. We've been unbeaten since we got battered by Man City 5-0. We lost the first 3 games, so it's like those 3 don't count. So, but but to be let's talk taking away from Bournemouth. That's an actually achievement from where you were after that 9-0. Right, to be able to be unbeaten to now is quite an achievement.
And here's another one. If we don't lose the next 2, we set a new record for ourselves, which is of course, we're in the Premier League. That's ridiculous when you think about it.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, there's a good chance we can set it. There's no reason why not.
Yeah, definitely. Just very quickly, of course, we was discussing Gary O'Neill, and I've come under a little bit of criticism for the BBC article where I said, all Bournemouth fans, who know what they're on about, will want Gary O'Neill in charge. And I was criticised for the use of all. And, I can understand there's probably some that aren't, but look at what we are as a club. Eddie Howe and what he did, for the football club all those years ago and helped us go through the leagues. Do we really want a big name?
What have you actually been criticised for?
So basically turning around and saying that I think Gary O'Neill should get the job.
I mean, I think personally, you don't go 6 games unbeaten as an interim manager without putting your name in the frame for it. Not all Bournemouth fans may agree that Gary O'Neill should get the job, but at the moment he's not doing himself any harm for the position. But with the situation at the club with the takeover, nothing's going to be decided until then. So, if I was the American guy coming in, he's not done himself any, he's not done any bad. He's not had any bad results to make you think he doesn't deserve the job. Unless the Americans have got their own man they want to bring in. But I think it'd be very harsh on Gary O'Neill for not, if he doesn't get the position. Obviously that's the situation out of our hands. But most of the Bournemouth fans I know are quite happy with the work Gary's done, and a lot of the fans that I speak to feel that he would deserve a crack. But I can't see why you've had a lot of criticism there, to be quite honest, Craig.
No, and that is my opinion. Is I think he deserves the job. Max, would you take Gary O'Neill now, or would you still say, okay, get a bigger name?
You're on mute. Mute. You're on mute.
Mute.
Oh, what idiot I am. Sorry, start again. Yeah.
That's all right, mate. Don't worry. It's fine.
Yeah. I wouldn't go for a big name just yet. I would probably just take Gary O'Neill for the season, see where he gets us, what finish we are in the Premier League at the end. 6 games unbeaten, I haven't really expected that. 3 or 4 maybe, but ever since looking at the comments, we've took that fat L at Anfield and lost 9-0. I think we've, under Gary O'Neill, we've set ourselves a good record, and hopefully we can carry on doing that. So yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
who's the big names that are in the frame for it? Big names. What's the big names?
What manager wise?
I'm just asking the question to the whole room. You know,
Well,
who's the big names that are out there that Bournemouth can have as a manager at the moment? Chris Wilder. You'd be
No,
mad to want to have Chris Wilder. Sean Dyche. Really? The football he plays, you'd really want him?
nah,
No, exactly.
long ball merchant, you know.
Where's the big managerial names out there that are going to want to take Bournemouth on?
to be honest, I can't think of anybody really. There is
Go too low. Now you're all right.
Yeah,
there's the chap that was at Bodo Glimt, I believe, was it Knutson that is
I
mentioned.
believe so. Hang on, let me just quickly look.
But
I
that's
think
always a
what's
risk
happened.
when you take a manager like that. It's okay to say he's done fine, you know, great in the league he's in and in the, you know, Europa League. But coming to a club like Bournemouth's a
He's
whole different kettle of fish.
oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
manager for Bodo Glimt is Jitu Knutson.
Knutson, yeah,
To be fair, when we played at Bodo Glimt, it was very tough. It was a very tough place to go to because they play with so much freedom at home. So it wouldn't be a bad choice. Then, sorry, I mean, as a neutral, from what I'm seeing, why it'd be stupid to get rid of. Why would you want to get rid of O'Neill, who's managing Screw? You just said you've been unbeaten since that 9-0 defeat. Why would you then want to get rid of the manager who's been in charge of it?
Exactly. Totally agree.
It's stupid.
yeah, yeah. That's why I think that Scott, not Scott Parker, of course. That's looking at that bloody Parker Bin Man thing. But that's why Gary O'Neill, I think, deserves the job and should get the job.
Exactly. I don't
What
see
do
why
you make
people
of
are
it, James?
complaining.
Do you think that he deserves the job?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Personally, I think he's the best man. Sorry, Stephen, as you were saying.
Yeah, I don't see why people are complaining you for wanting that. I would.
Yeah,
Say like someone took over the temporary charge if Arteta wasn't doing well, and we went on an unbeaten run since and got ourselves in the top four. I'm asking to sign the contract.
yeah,
Especially since like you had your own manager who brought you up to the champion, who brought you up from the championship, is then sitting there slagging you off saying I haven't been backed and this team isn't good enough to get into the good enough to stay in the Premier League.
yeah. I personally, I think this. We've got a very, very talented young side, Stephen, and I think that if we had stuck with Scott Parker, personally, I think it would have been wasted. A lot of the players would have been wasted
Exactly.
on him. Manny, we spoke to you about, of course, Gary O'Neill before, and that you can't change him. There's no reason to do that. The only thought is if Bill Foley wants to bring in his own man, you know, who's to stop him?
Here's the thing, though. We spoke about this on the cherry picking podcast. Thank you once again for bringing me on that. It was good fun. Loved it. And I remember saying that Foley should be intelligent enough to know that when you come to a club like Bournemouth, you're not going to be able to necessarily impose your ideas and your dreams on the club and the fans in question because the culture is going to be extremely different. And obviously, if the fans have made it crystal clear that they want Gary O'Neill to stay, Foley cannot simply be that naive and say, I'm the owner, I get to decide what I want to do, because he will be smart enough to know that getting the fans on his side will be important. And I also said, unlike American fans who lose interest in the team which doesn't win very much, English football fans still stay loyal to their teams through thick and thin, come hell or high water, no matter what. And they're the ones who have their fingers on the pulse of the club, unlike any Billy come lately, if you will, who might just want to come in and, inject a little bit of cash. So I think Foley will be smart enough to realize how the Glazers and how Cronkies don't really have the best reputation among their fans, and Stephen can back me up on that, and probably say, you know what, this isn't really my place as of yet to impose what I want. Let's see how the season goes. I do like what I'm seeing, and maybe if there is a time to maybe change it, then maybe we can consider it. But for now, if it isn't broken, I'm not going to fix it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. And AFCB Germany agrees with us. 100% happy if O'Neill stays. And thoughts on Thomas Tuchel? We're just going back to that message that was on the screen. Probably expensive, but we should have more money under new ownership. I think Tuchel is probably looking for a bigger job than
Yeah,
this, unfortunately.
it'd be a bigger project that would attract a manager of his caliber.
England.
You know, a trophy winning club, or possibly England, as it keeps circulating in the press. But I don't think Bournemouth is the kind of club for a Tuchel just yet.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just discuss some of the other results actually over this weekend, because there's been some interesting ones. Of course, let's start off with Liverpool Man City, because of course this is good for a certain team. And of course, we got two of the fans in this room as well. But Liverpool beating Man City. Liverpool are a funny one this year because they seem to be able to turn it on at certain times, and but other times they've been poor.
Who do you want to throw this to, mate?
Yeah, who are you throwing this at?
To the room,
Yeah.
to the room. Go on, jump in,
Um,
whoever wants
I
to.
watched
you know what?
the City and Liverpool game earlier. I did, and as soon as Foden got that rebound goal, I thought that would have been City's win, but it wasn't to be. Liverpool got their momentum back as soon as it was ruled out, and Salah kept cool on that, and he was through on goal, and he just placed it in the back of the net. And Klopp wasn't happy with some of the decisions, and I think he got red carded because he was running down the touchline like a headless chicken. I don't know, he was just going mad, so he just got sent to the stands.
Um, the thing with Liverpool I find this season is that squad is so unbalanced, it's unreal. Right? If you take Henderson or Thiago, one or two injuries that they've already had this season, right? You've got a 19-year-old in Harvey Elliott, or 18-year-old who's having his first season properly in the Premier League, right? And they're relying on him to pull them out their arse out the fire. Well, for someone that's supposed to be challenging, this ain't like why Arsenal were when they were using Martinelli and Saka to pull the arse out the fire. No one's expecting us to challenge for the league, right? They're supposed to be challenging for the league with a teenage kid in midfield who's supposed to cover them, right? And they've always run that risk of having a smaller squad, right? But what's realised now is that Klopp's been saying for a while now he needs more investment to gradually rebuild that squad, and now it's all come to a head where, because of the lack of investment from FSG, right, and controlling their net spend, they've now got an extremely aging side, right, with a very weak second squad. So, and they're having to compete on all fronts, and I think people have.
Oh, I think we've just lost Stephen there for a second. But it was quite interesting actually what Stephen was saying there. I'm sure he'll be back very, very shortly. But we threw this question to you, Manny, during cherry picking, didn't we? And that was, can Arsenal win the league? Now, of course, you've only dropped 3 points all season, got 9 wins, 1 defeat, um, conceded 10 goals, 24 scored. I think it's looking good. I think it's looking really good for you, mate.
Again, 10 games out of 38. And we also do not have a strong enough bench. In addition, I think the weakness of our bench and the weakness of the state of our team as a whole was exposed when we played in the Europa League against Bodo Glimt and also today against Leeds. Starting Takahiro Tomiyasu at left back worked against Liverpool for a specific purpose, but that was a horses for courses pick. He should never have been brought onto the pitch because, by all accounts from what I'm reading, he did not have the best of games today. I believe he wasn't really coordinating well with Ramsdale, your former boy, of course, and I don't believe he was able to be at his his usual best. And normally, when you play a right-footed player at left back, you can't really expect him to overlap too much. And he just never, I don't think he really offered too much. And obviously, when Tierney came on and replaced Ben White, bringing Tomiyasu into the right back position, the team looked a lot better. But against Bodo Glimt, we went over there with only 3 centre backs, and 2 of them have started every game in the Premiership so far. The other one, Rob Holding, was an option, but now we've basically played all of these games so far with only 3 centre backs, and one of them is out of form. The other one hardly ever plays, and even when he plays, sometimes he looks positionally out of it. And in addition, Craig, after the World Cup, we are going to be having games coming thick and fast. Yeah? So there's going to be a situation where our squad depth will be tested, and unless we buy the players we need in January, we are going to struggle. And our bench strength is still, in many ways, not considered to be good enough. So I don't want to, gas up the team saying, yes, we've done well so far, because again, we are going to have some big tests, and we also have to make sure that we test ourselves against the likes of Brighton and other teams who have been our bogey teams in recent years. And mind you, under Graham Potter, Brighton had an outstanding record against us. So again, I don't want to celebrate anything. I still think that we might come up short when it comes to winning the league, but we do have a very good chance of making the top 4 as long as we strengthen in January. Because bear in mind, with Liverpool having found a combination which works and having rediscovered their confidence, I wouldn't be surprised if they went on a really good run where they started to beat more teams again and just went on that run where they would start to catch up and climb up the table again. And knowing Liverpool, they've done that at least a few times before. And of course, City will also be eager to take out their frustration from losing today on a few other teams. And it's just too early to call. And I really don't believe that our squad depth compares favorably at all to the likes of Manchester City or Chelsea. So that's one reason why I say no, I don't believe we can win. Now, if we do end up winning at the end of the season, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to look a gift horse in its mouth. Far from it. But I just have to say again, we still have to temper our expectations. And it frustrates me seeing a few fans going on and on about how we're going to do it. There are some fans who are complimenting the way we're playing and also today saying, well, sometimes we need games like this. We need ugly wins. But we also need to make sure that we have a few setbacks like the one against Manchester United to make us see that as good as we are, we still have a lot of room for improvement. And we can't keep getting away with these moments because, Murphy's Law, if it goes up, it comes back down again. So we need to keep ourselves grounded. That's all I'm going to say.
Just going to bring up a comment from Alan Montgomery, and this was to the thoughts on Thomas Tuchel. More chance of Tommy Cooper. I don't think that's going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen. And another interesting stat is Fulham. And apparently we haven't lost a single game in which Solanke has started, which is true. So let's hope he starts against Southampton because we definitely want to beat them. We'll come to that game in a bit, but just going over a couple of the other games as well. Of course, Arsenal versus Leeds. You mentioned quite a bit about that, Manny. Eddie got a draw against Man United away from home.
Good result for Newcastle, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the form Newcastle have been in, obviously they've had a lot of draws this season, but I kind of fancied them at Old Trafford today. It seems kind of the side that Newcastle could pick points up on. But yeah, I mean Eddie would have taken a draw at the start of the day, I'm sure. So I mean that's a good result for Newcastle. Not great for United though.
No, they're around there though, aren't they, Newcastle? And they could, Eddie could get them into that Champions League position. It's not beyond them, but maybe it might need to take another season.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I reckon. Do you know what? They got a good shout for Europa League or Conference League. I reckon, but Champions League, I think, is a little bit beyond them. To be
Yeah.
honest, I mean, you're talking. I mean, look at the season that Arsenal obviously having. Tottenham are doing well. Who have been doing well. You know, Liverpool, you'd imagine should catch up. City are obviously going to definitely be in there. Newcastle, I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong. I think it would be fantastic for the Premier League and for English football in general if Newcastle upset the apple cart and broke into that top four. But can't see it this year. Can't see
No.
it this year.
Fair enough. And the Spurs as well up there. They got a 2-0 win against Everton. But let's look at two teams that are down that bottom end. And these are two sides that, are contrasting for me. So Wolves and Nottingham Forest. So Wolves didn't really spend very much at all. They bought in Diego Costa. Bruno Lage was there. And of course, recently been sacked. They're on about Nuno going back to Wolves. I personally think that they won't be anywhere near that relegation zone. However, Nottingham Forest, and we spoke about this on cherry picking, didn't we, Manny?
Yes, we did.
It's signing that amount of players. And I had the conversation with the Fulham fan the other day as well, Steve. I think why us and Fulham are doing so well is because we haven't spent ridiculous amounts. We haven't changed everything like Nottingham Forest have, I guess they had to because they went up on a lot of loan players. But that's such a dangerous game to play, isn't it?
Extremely dangerous. I mean, we talked about it. Whether signing players on loan or signing players permanently, you just can't try to have that many players come in and run the risk of not having them getting the game time they need. And there are some players who I do believe will be very discontented. Some players will definitely be eager to play a lot more. I can certainly name at least 3 or 4 players off the top of my head who will need some game time. And of course, when there's that level of discontent, it doesn't really do very much for team harmony. And Steve Cooper is in many ways responsible for that because, you know, it is getting more and more difficult, and they're not winning any games. Even if some players are doing well, you sometimes have to do what Sean Dyche did at Burnley and say, you know what, I have to continue to make changes to do what I see fit. And that was the season, I think it was after the World Cup in 2018, when Joe Hart started for Burnley as their first choice keeper ahead of Tom Heaton. He was making some decent saves and playing quite well, but Burnley just weren't getting the results. And so Dyche had to take the call and say, you know what, Joe, you've been playing well, but we need some wins. I think now's the time for me to bring Tom Heaton in. He's our club captain. He deserves to play a few games, and the rest is history. It was a case of never looking back. And even after Heaton went on to Aston Villa, I think it was, Joe never really got a look in afterwards. So sometimes as a manager, you've got to take some decisions and say, you know what, if certain players aren't able to produce for me and do what I want them to do, I can't really keep them in favor of other players. But again, it also begs the question of those 22 players, 20 odd players he signed, how many of them did he actually want? And if he really wanted them, why isn't he willing to bring them in? Wolves do look to be I mean, look, it's just one win right now after the trouble they've been through, losing Bruno Lage and still not having a new manager come in. And maybe again, this is just another sign of the bounce that normally happens, because this was effectively a relegation 6-pointer. If they had lost against Forest today, then it would have been disastrous. And it was certainly a disastrous result for Forest, who are now back at the foot of the table. And you know, there are problems going on over there, gentlemen. And, Cooper is partly responsible. The board is partly responsible. The people in charge of recruitment were responsible. They got fired. And, you know, I only hope that that Cooper starts to see the light and say, you know what, maybe my combinations aren't working. Maybe some of the players I've selected so far have not been pulling their weight. I need to do something. I don't want Forest to be at the bottom. I might have signed a 3-year contract, but I need to prove that I'm the right man for the job. And so, will it happen over the course of this season? I have to say, quite honestly, I can't see it happening, because I just don't think Cooper will be that type of person who will be humble enough to accept that that whatever he's trying is not working and make some changes. I just don't think he has that humility in him. So I fear for Forest, and I think it'll just be a case of you say hello, we say goodbye. Hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, the other team that are right down there, we are playing on Wednesday night. And I've done the opposition preview show today for that game. It's huge. It's huge for us. Firstly, the thing I asked Alex Letizier, who come on, is this a real rivalry to them? Her view was, it's not really to them, but we want to make it one. What do you reckon, guys?
To be honest, I mean, the games I've been to against, a lot of the games over the years against Southampton, when both sides were in the lower leagues back in the League One days and in the Premier League days, it doesn't have that same bite as a Southampton and Pompey game, and I don't think it ever will do. They're only 27 miles down the road. That is true, but I mean, I know a few Saints fans locally, and they don't see Bournemouth as a big rival. It's a South Coast derby, and I think that's how it'll always be seen. When Pompey play Southampton, that is when the real rivalry really starts. It's the same with Brighton, Southampton, and Bournemouth will all be playing South Coast derbies this year. But I don't think I don't think they're really bothered by Bournemouth, to be honest.
AFCB Germany said Southampton fans care so much about not caring about us that I do believe they care more than they would admit. It's an interesting one.
Very true, very true. I mean, sometimes, people can be coy and say, we're just not that into you. But if you're just not that into us, why do you keep talking about us? And I would actually say, Matt, that when it comes to Bournemouth, the longer you establish yourselves as a Premier League club, the longer you're able to cause Southampton problems and other teams problems as well, the more you will be taken seriously. It normally happens sometimes that if clubs, for example, might not have the stadium capacity or what have you, or even the history, at first they might not be taken seriously, but then, a few seasons and it can all change. Of course, having said that, we all know that when it comes to clubs, things move in cycles. You can be at the top for a few years and then fade away and not be back for another few years and so forth. But again, if you start to develop with that new American owner you're getting and get on the right track, who knows? I mean, look, I'm a fan of a London club, and it's very easy to say that we shouldn't look beyond our rivals like Spurs and Chelsea. I mean, I despise both of them. But even a team like Fulham, for example, when if and when they're able to become more consistent, they're also a threat to us. And I think some of the more dyed-in-the-wool fans will mention that any London derby is always a match that has to be taken seriously. Whether it's Fulham, whether it's Queen's Park Rangers, whether it's Charlton Athletic or West Ham United or Brentford, especially, who still can be a bit of a bogey team for us. Things have to be taken seriously. So sooner or later, I think the Saints fans are going to have to, look inside themselves and say, you know what? The way things are going, especially now, we might need to be worried about the Cherries.
Yeah, definitely. We've just
And
had
remember,
somebody else.
those cherry seeds, they can be dangerous if you don't get rid of them.
Exactly. We do have actually somebody join us, and no guesses for who they support.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hey,
mate.
right.
How you doing?
Hey, Manny, you're right.
Cheers, Hans. Good.
I heard
to
you
see
talk about
man.
Arsenal, so I was like,
How you doing, Has?
yeah, I'm good, man. You? I've been watching a bit of your streamer for like the past half hour or something, and you guys are talking about rivalries. I think, like for me, rivalries depend on, like, because we're in a London club. Me and Manny support London clubs, so we have London derbies almost like 4 or 5 times a season or something like that. But then I'd say with derbies, it depends on who you play. Like with Arsenal, for me, like it's like the biggest derby, right? But we've hated each other for years. Yeah, with Chelsea, it's the same thing. But I wouldn't say it's just like a lesser extent. But then I guess when you play someone like Fulham, it's a London derby, but it's like a different. I don't know how to explain it. It's like the vibe is very different. Yeah. Like for you guys, I guess like we're born from Southampton. I don't know if it's the same sort of thing as say if we were playing someone like a West Ham or something. I don't know. Maybe in that bracket.
Yeah, I would say that's a good point.
Yeah, it's something we haven't really got, isn't it, Matt? We haven't. Well, it's something that we've lacked for a little while. A proper derby.
Yeah. Who's your main rivals then? Sorry, I don't.
That's a good question. I mean, back in the day when we were in the lower leagues, it would have been the likes of like Reading.
Reading,
always a big rivalry when we were back in the old second division, and both sides were fighting for playoff places, and they just moved into this big mega Majeski stadium. And back then, I'm sort of going back sort of 20 years. Really, we seem to have battles with different clubs. I mean, at one point, Huddersfield were.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
We're a side that plays quite frequently, sort of in the playoffs and that sort of become a little bit of a rivalry for a while. But in terms of derby rivalry, I mean, Southampton and Bournemouth will never be compared to an Arsenal Tottenham.
Because that's something that's like sort of happened over years and years.
Yeah. I mean, the story with Pompey and Southampton is all to do with the yards. It goes back to those days where one of them went on strike and the other town went in and rescued their docks and whatever the story is. But it goes all back to that, and it's transitioned into the football. Whereas little old Bournemouth here, we've we haven't got really a major rival.
I guess recently.
But do you like that or do you not like that? Sorry.
I don't think I'm really bothered by it.
Because as a Spurs fan, like I loathe and hate play like the Arsenal away game. I actually feel sick, like not literally sick, but like mentally sick before we play them at the Emirates. And then I don't know if Manny feels the same, but it's always
thereabouts, perhaps.
when you guys turn up at White Hart Lane. But as in those games, I like dread them. It's like a mix of emotions. Does that make sense? Like it's dread, but it's also like it could be really good if we win. But I know if we lose, my phone's gonna go. I'm gonna have to switch off WhatsApp or something for like 2 hours because my area where I live is basically Tottenham or Arsenal. So yeah.
I would say we've had a thing against Watford for a little while, haven't we? Watford have had a thing against us, but to be honest, we're not close. Whereas the thing is, and I can feel this a little bit with Southampton. If we was to stay up and Southampton were to go down, I think we'd miss them. And likewise, I know it's not going to happen, but if Arsenal or Tottenham went down, then you would miss each other, really, wouldn't you? Because you miss that excitement of that rivalry.
I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
I get that. I mean, there was actually a point in the 70s when Tottenham got relegated, so Spurs had to have a fire sale of their players, and they even gave us Pat Jennings for a while, which was nice of them in a way. So I get what you're saying, and that segues back into what I was talking about. Once you get established, teams can start to fear you. So I wouldn't go so far to say that it will never, be that big of a rivalry as the Saints and Pompey, but it could be something that can develop. And sometimes rivalries are meant to be created. Dynasties are meant to be created, as they say. Legacies are meant to be made. So I wouldn't rule that out. And certainly someone who's had the distinction of managing both Pompey and Saints is a person close to your heart, Henry Redknapp.
Yeah, I love Harry.
He went to Portsmouth, then went to Southampton, and then went back to Portsmouth of all things. Go figure. So I'm not too sure that he would be necessarily well received by the Saints fans in some respects, and he'd probably be the best person to tell you about that sort of rivalry. But I think he was also lucky at that time that Portsmouth weren't really. Probably weren't around that much, perhaps. And of course, now Portsmouth have their own problems, so they're pretty much out of the picture when it comes to Southampton. But listen, if Portsmouth aren't there, Bournemouth should take their place. So this is a challenge. The gauntlet has been laid down. Develop yourselves, and then we'll see what happens. And sure, if Spurs were to get relegated, we'd still have to battle Chelsea and maybe another London team. If we were to get relegated, it would be Spurs against Chelsea and another London team. So things go on.
But isn't it like a different rivalry? Like, I don't know how it feels like for Arsenal fans when you play Chelsea, but like for me, it's like just the level below playing Arsenal. Like with Arsenal, it's like you're like born with, like, I'm a Spurs fan, so I was born with like the hating Arsenal, if that makes sense. Like I was brought up to hate them. But like with Chelsea, like I just don't like them just because they're Chelsea, if that makes sense. Or
I think it's got
like
more to do with the fact that Chelsea of late have become very successful in terms of winning Premiership titles and winning in Europe, and they sort of rub it in our face by saying, you boys think you're all that, but you're really not. And all we have to show for our endeavours is the 2004 Invincible season, where I think a lot of fans will tell you that team wouldn't hold a candle to the 2002 double winners or the 1991 league winning side. So again, it's all about perceptions.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, definitely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes. But it's a huge game for us, and I think Ralph Hasenhüttl could well be sacked as Southampton manager, couldn't he, really, if he loses this game against Bournemouth? Especially, at one point they were winning against West Ham and got pegged back. If we beat them, apart from Forest and Leicester, they are a little bit marooned in that bottom three. I know it's early days still, but at the same time, it's not looking good for them because I don't think they've looked good as a team.
Nope, they haven't. As I said earlier, they overachieved against Chelsea, and that's been pretty much it. They haven't been able to get that type of cohesion. They certainly do have a bit of fight, and they can take the game to other teams, but I just think they look a little bit shorn of confidence, easily demoralised. We were talking about this tactically, what you could expect from them. So again, how you shape the team up to face them will be very important. And that brings me back to the point about how you haven't lost a game with Solanke in your team. I think it was brought up in the chat. Whatever you do not disrupt that front two combination. Keep Phil Bill and Dom Solanke up front. Keep your four-man midfield. You will have the better of them. The way they tore Fulham apart in that first half, I think you'll have more than enough for the Saints. I'm not even sure that even Ward-Prowse or Che Adams will do much about that. And they do look as though they're struggling, and they can very easily lose their confidence. So it's going to be up to you to make sure you take advantage of that.
interesting one as well. And thank you, AFCB Germany. I did, I thought I was kept butchering his name earlier on, but maybe I've done all right. So, um, but one thing that Alex Cizia did mention was James Ward-Prowse is not particularly having a great season, and if he's not having a great season, Southampton don't tick at all, do they?
I
It looks
mean,
as though he's the. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so yeah, so for me, like it's ironic you mentioned Ward-Prowse because we were talking about on my stream earlier tonight about how he probably wouldn't get into like a Spurs team or something. I think with Ward-Prowse, like he has ability, but if you limit him from set pieces, he's not as effective. So if you can stay away from conceding corners and free kicks and that, I don't think he'll do as much.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. He's
He's all right as a player. He's not the best. He's all
Yeah,
right, but it's
I
his
think-
set pieces which are just like, yeah.
I think as a player, and people might hang me for this, but I think he's slightly overrated. The reason being is that he is literally a set piece player, isn't he? And you can't take that away from the guy. But is he the type of world class midfielder that's gonna walk into a Spurs or an Arsenal and change your midfield? Not really. I don't think so. Is he good enough for the England squad? There's a question for everybody. Would you select him for England?
No.
I personally wouldn't. Not just because he's a Saints player. That's got nothing to do with it. But I just think, there's better all round midfielders out there. Like a Maddison, I would say is higher up on the list for me than a Ward-Prowse. And that's got nothing to do with his Saints connections. That's just as the player is.
I think you're jumping the gun there, really, about Ward-Prowse to England, Matt, because here's the thing. We've now got a situation where, in addition to a few other players being doubtful, Calvin Phillips won't be on that plane because it appears that he's going to have shoulder surgery and he might be out. And if you were to take a look at the Euro 2020 team, we'd start every game with Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips in the center of that midfield. Yeah, Rice would be given the freedom to sort of move around a little bit. People say that he's a grafter, but he does have some creativity in him. With Phillips, he's all hustle, muscle, bustle. He's sort of like that midfield rock in a way, and I think to his credit, Southgate has tried to cover for that by bringing in someone like a Jude Bellingham, for instance, who could possibly move around a little bit. From what I've seen of Bellingham, he would start every game a little bit tentative, but grow into it a little bit later on. But someone like a Ward-Prowse, I mean, you talk about how he's more of a set piece merchant, but from what I see of him, he's normally the type of person who could lend a bit of solidity to the midfield. Maybe it won't make one of the top club teams better per se, and that's perfectly fine. But sometimes you need that solidity in midfield. So if I were to consider him as maybe midfield cover, someone you could bring on, because like let's say for example, if Jordan Henderson is considered to be not quite up to it and he can't play, if he gets injured, I mean, what type of solid central midfielder could we potentially pick? And I mean, I wouldn't discount Ward-Prowse's credentials for England. I'm not saying that he would necessarily walk into our Arsenal team or has a Spurs team or any of the other top teams in the division, but I wouldn't look to discount him just yet. I mean, if Southgate is willing to pick someone like a Connor Cody as a squad defender, someone who is in good form and someone who should, in my opinion, be challenging for a starting spot at that tournament, I don't think he should necessarily thumb his nose at Ward-Prowse. The problem is, for the most part, we know that Southgate has his own ideas of the players he wants to bring in. And of course, injury might dictate that he will make a slight, digression from that, as it were. But I don't know. But he could look at Ward-Prowse. He could look at Maddison. He could look at what will be the best composition for his squad. So if he doesn't have a Calvin Phillips, and if he can't really rely on Jordan Henderson to start many games, I don't know, and Bellingham might still be unproven, why not? Give him a spot in the squad.
Well, let's close off the show with a little bit of prediction ahead of this Southampton match. So I am going with a 2-1 win myself. Matt, what are you going with?
2-0.
Manny?
3-2 to the Cherries.
Max?
3-1.
And Haz, what do you reckon?
2-1 to Bournemouth.
2-1. And AFCB Germany is going with a 4-2 win.
Bit of a strange scoreline, isn't it?
Yeah, so...
Very ambitious. Very
Yeah.
ambitious.
But you guys are at home, so I'm quite confident you'll win.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Well,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us on this show again. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, Haz, for the first time.
Okay,
More
it's
than
okay.
welcome whenever you want to come on. And yeah, we will certainly have a chat ahead of the Spurs game, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Max,
yeah.
thank you again for joining us, mate. You know, pleasure as always.
You're welcome, mate.
No problem. Cheers, Manny. Thank you so much for joining us again.
As always, a pleasure.
And of
you.
course, Matt, you know, we'll be here doing cherry picking as normal this week. There's also lots of good content that is coming up. Wing has put in 2-0 as well. Thank you for checking us out, Phoenix. And thank you, Wing. And yeah, thank you, AFCB Germany as well, because he has commented quite a lot. The Alex Letizier interview will be up tomorrow morning, so please do keep your eyes peeled for that. Also, she is the first person to make a particular prediction, but I'll leave that with her. You can watch it and listen to it, but nobody has actually done this on this channel before. If you probably all start watching all the old opposition preview shows now, or the end of them anyway, just to work out what I'm going on about. But if you're not going to do that, just watch it tomorrow. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe, the bell button, tell all your friends, add everybody to the Facebook group, send it round, stick it on social media wherever you want. Because you know, every subscriber does help us, every like helps us, and you know, it'll be a pleasure to keep growing. But until the next video, up the cherries, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you everybody for joining us.
See you later.
Up the Cherries. Thanks.